we're going to be going into right triangle trig. And so all the triangles we're going to deal with right now are going to be right triangles. Something people noticed very early was, if you have a right triangle, let's say you just have some angle like 20 degrees. Okay, they noticed that if you were to blow this triangle up and make it a larger triangle, they would be similar because the angle is remaining the same. So if we had something like x over a here, well, x over a is going to be the same as if I did y all over b. This is setting up similar triangles. And so what they did was they realized that if you're always going to divide this way, whenever it's 20 degrees in this corner, it's always going to be the same fraction. And so what they called this when they did x over a or y over b, they called this the tangent. So we're going to be using tangent to find ratios and sides. So you're going to have a triangle, a right triangle, with an angle in the corner. Now if the angle is in this corner right here, then we have names for the three sides. This is our hypotenuse because it's across the way from the 90-degree angle. And then this one on the opposite side is going to be called your opposite. And the one next to the angle right here is called your adjacent. Adjacent means right next to. And so the way we write it in mathematics, we write tangent of theta, and then we set up a fraction. Every time you're always going to write opposite over adjacent. Okay? Now if you have a right triangle that's a different orientation, say theta is here, things are going to be flipping so that this is actually the opposite side and this is the adjacent side. So you want to be thinking about where your angle is. Alright, let's do our first example. Let's say you have a triangle here. And we have a 5, 12, 13 triangle. And I'm going to put theta here and alpha in this corner. There are two different tangents we could set up here. Tangent of theta means that we are standing in this highlighted corner. And that means that we have to think, what is the opposite side? What is the adjacent side? So to set up a trig ratio, if they tell you to do this, you think, all right, 5 is opposite, that goes on top, and then adjacent is going to be next to the theta, so that's going to be 12, and that's going to be on the bottom of your fraction. This is opposite, this guy is adjacent. And then you just write it as a ratio. Ratio means fraction, so you just leave it there. The other thing you can do is tangent of alpha, but we're going to be standing in a different corner, the highlighted corner in the other side. If you're standing in that corner, we don't have an opposite of 5 now. We think the opposite side is going to be 12, and the adjacent side is going to be 5. So it depends on which corner you're going to be standing in. But if they ask for a ratio, this is all you have to do. You just have to think, where's my opposite side, where's my adjacent, and do a ratio. Another example, example 2, is how you actually find a side. So they're going to start giving you right triangles. They're going to give you an angle like 20 degrees and 12 right here. And they want you to find x. Now, here we're going to be using tangent. So you do tangent of the angle. Now in this case, this is theta, so we're going to put 20 degrees right there. And we write it like this. We're going to set this equal to the ratio. So if I'm standing in this corner, I'm going to be writing opposite over adjacent. And this would be x over 12. Okay, now in trig, before we start solving things, we want to get x alone. So I'm going to multiply by 12 here. And so what I'm going to get is a canceling and a 12 tangent of 20 degrees on that side. Now this is what you put in your calculator. Now if you're using something like an iPhone, what you have to do is you have to type in 20, then you have to type the tan button, and then you do times 12. You have to kind of work backwards. But often if you have like a line that you can type everything in at once, you do 12 tangent of 20 degrees. Now if you plug that in, and you should double check this on your calculator now, you should get 4.36, and if I round it's going to be 8. And another thing to make sure, your calculator should be in degree mode. You should see a little DEG somewhere, or you should go into the menu settings and you should look to make sure it's in degree. If it's in something like radians or gradients, you don't want that. That's going to give you the wrong answers because we're having all of our angles in degrees here. Okay, so let me have you do a try problem. I'm going to give you a triangle with alpha in the corner. We want to figure out f. Let's let the angle be 10 degrees. Now, give it a try. Okay, so the angle is going to be 10 degrees. We're going to do tangent of 10 degrees. We're going to set it equal to a fraction, and this is going to be opposite over adjacent. So opposite side is going to be 10, x. The adjacent is going to be 10. And like last time, we're going to multiply 10 on both sides to get 10 tangent of 10 degrees. Put that in your calculator, and you should get 1.763 equals x. Okay, now another thing we need to do, example 3 here, we need to be able to find an angle. So they're going to have another setup like before with a right triangle, but they're going to put theta in the corner, and they'll have something like 6/4. Now, here is the opposite situation. We have two sides, but we don't have an angle. Normally, they give you a side and an angle, and you need to get the other side. So, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to do a setup of tangent of theta and still write our ratio. In this case, the opposite side is 6, the adjacent side is 4. Now, here's the issue. Tangent of theta. We don't have an angle to put in our calculator. So if this happens, we can actually flip, and this is when we have to use tan inverse on our calculator. So I tell my students, if you need to go backwards and get your angle, you can switch it to the other side, but make sure that you have this tan inverse right there. So on an iPhone, you would have to do 6 divided by 4 first, and then you press the tan inverse button. Now tan inverse, you might have to hit a second button, and then it might appear. So you have to do some investigating. But if you have a calculator where you can just type it in, you type tan inverse, 6 divided by 4, and that's going to be 56.3 degrees. So you should probably stop the video, make sure that you can get 56.3 degrees. The other thing that you need to keep in mind, this right here also has a different special name, arctan. For some reason, some calculators, instead of tan to the -1, tan inverse, they actually have a button, arctan, which is a little confusing, but if you know they're the same, it's not too bad. And lastly, I just want to show you one more example, because sometimes when you're solving for a side, we have some weird fraction stuff happening. So if it's 30 degrees, and we have x, and we have 12 right there, let's set up our normal tangent. Tangent of 30 degrees will equal the opposite side over the adjacent. So it's going to be 12 over x. Now normally before, if you look back at our other example, like back here, we times by 10, we times by 10, and the 10s would cancel. And that got x alone. In this situation, it's different because x is in the bottom of the fraction. So actually, what we can do here is we can switch these around. Okay, I called this the switcheroo. Basically, if you do 12 divided by 3, it's equal to 4, right? You can switch 3 and 4 around. As long as 12 stays on top, 12 divided by 4, that is 3 as well, right? So we're just swapping the thing it's equal to with what you're dividing, and that's okay. Now, when you work this out, you should probably make sure that your calculator can get this, because dividing by tangent can be tricky. I get an answer of 20.785. Some calculators might give you 12 root 3, but you just need to plug that in so you can get the decimal. One thing I tell students is that if you're having trouble getting this, you can actually write it 12 over and separately do tangent of 30, which is 0.577, and then do the division. Sometimes it's just easier to do them separately.